All right. What else do you want to talk about? I've heard that.
So what do you want to talk about?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I didn't even mean that. I've been watching too many Cody promos. I have heard that Tony Khan has protected the wrestling business by making sure that when he went out in public 12 hours after being spike leaping pile driven, he was wearing a Walgreens drugstore neck brace, which covered the whole thing and made quite a stir amongst not only the wrestling community, but the NFLers of the world. What the we not joke about that? Well, I wore the neck brace on Regis and Kathy Lee. We were talking about he's got to do something, but Regis and Kathy Lee was like 2 weeks after the goddamn match. I was carried out of the ring and sent to the hospital in Knoxville. This was 12 hours later and 30 years later and a whole different world. He didn't come off good on either side of the fence, did he?
So Wednesday night they do the big angle, and AEW fans really loved it, and other people were laughing about it, making a joke about it. The way Tony Khan took the punch, the way he sold, the fact that these are the guys that he's doing this for. But the NFL draft was the next day, and Tony Khan, wearing a neck brace, a la Andy Kaufman or Vince McMahon at trial, was in the conference room. His father, in some sort of green jacket behind him, other members of the Jacksonville Jaguars administration are in the room. But let's go now how it was first heard on the NFL Network. I think this is Rich Eisen, but I'm not sure. Let's go to this audio.
As Tony Khan becomes the first ever NFL executive in a draft room, shaking off the effects of a pile driver he received on national television in a wrestling ring the night before.
And there it is, Jim, the audio of the introduction. Tony's drinking coffee. Other than wearing the neck brace, nothing seems to be really inhibiting his movement or anything. But on that note, before we talk about this, the Pat McAfee show, I guess, was airing live on ESPN, and this was their coverage of Tony Khan.
The last thing we need is for him to look like Tony Khan, who took a Meltzer driver just the other night. Wednesday night, he took a Meltzer driver, I do believe.
That's right.
Guy's got a broken neck, and he's battling through so he can pick up Ryan Thomas Jr., and that mustache is never not going to be sweet, and Doug Peterson's 3 seats away going, what the fuck is going on? Back to Trevor Lawrence, though. Go ahead, Mad Bell.
Well, I was just going to say, I understand, keeping up with the gimmick. Someone should tell Tony Khan, hey, if you have a neck brace on, don't fucking move around like nothing's wrong. You stick with the gimmick and look straight ahead like your neck's broken, okay? What are we doing here?
Thank you.
There's the crew of Pat McAfee's football podcast critiquing Tony Khan's selling of his neck injury. But Jim, here's some audio. What do you think about Tony Khan going this far, or going to these extents with the gimmick on national TV?
Well, they're laughing at him. And again, people are going to say, oh, if anybody else did it, he even did it. Cornette did it, but now he's laughing at Tony Khan for wearing a neck brace or selling a neck. It's the place and the time, and the NFL doesn't have to work with you, Tony. Just because your dad owns one of the teams, they don't have to come out there and give the grave announcer voiced, well, our best wishes to Tony Khan. He's, under this bad circumstance of this injury or whatever. No, they're laughing at you because they know it's all bullshit. And they apparently, from dealing with you or you being in their world, know that you're goofy over there as you apparently come off over here in ours. And they're wanting to laugh at you because it's preposterous to them. It was preposterous that you did the angle, Tony, because you're not a television performer, nor a worker, nor an athlete. And they're laughing at you because of who you did it with, because your smarmy little buddies, bosom buddies from Cucamonga, are ratings poison and nobody wants to see them because they're annoying, and you've wasted your money on a defective piece of Japanese merchandise, and Your jungle boy that's one of your pillars turned out to be a fucking rock. That's how smart he is. And the only reason he's got a job is because you're a sucker. And you're now doing this because a documentary is following you around, and you actually got to be on television in another world, the football world, because of the fucking draft that your father is figured into quite prominently since he's the rich guy. So you get to take a bump on TV and wear a neck brace like a fucking mark at the NFL draft the next. You couldn't wait to take the goddamn bump next week after the draft was over, because that way people from that world would think it's all hogwash anyway, wouldn't have an excuse to laugh at you and laugh at our business at the same time. But because you're a mark and you were either talked into this or came up with this idea, who knows, you do it then and you get laughed at not only in our business, but also in theirs. And when you do an angle like this and you sell it by wearing a neck brace, you're in normal terms, whoever, even Kaufman, he sold it like it was real. And people had no choice but to believe it, because why? It defied all logic that he would carry it on that long, right? And people weren't as smart then to every detail. But he worked it to where people believed it. You, 12 hours later, have people laughing at you and how ridiculous you look, and by extension, how stupid that wrestling business must be. It's some fucking plaything that he's got. It's not serious business like us over here in a football business. That's the way it's coming off. So you make your own fans, many of them, laugh at you for your poor performance as relates to the wrestling side of it. And then you make the people you do business with in the football world laugh at you, because look at you, you look ridiculous. And you shouldn't be being pile-driven on television, because you shouldn't be on TV. So what positive is any of this except Tony gets to fucking fulfill another one of his fantasies from the message board days? It's ridiculous. Nobody that's had any experience in the business, either in promotion, in matchmaking, or in performing, would have thought that was a good idea to do that, not only because of the way it was going to fucking look, but because of the way that this fucking guy is incapable of carrying it off. Because everything he does looks fucking goofy. Stop me when I tell a lie.
Again, if you're going to sell it, sell it. That's the problem. It can't just be, I put on a neck brace and I'm going to just act the way I normally do and say things the way I normally do and be my normal self. It should be, if you want to be in that room, he should be in a bed, laying there while his father does it. If you really want to go all the way.
Or he could have just waited, and he would only look ridiculous in wrestling instead of in football too. He could have waited 6 days or whatever.